Yes, thanks for staying with us on the South Australian Sports Show. One of South Australia's best football players, Stephen Stretch. We didn't get to see him much here, of course, because he did his best work over there with Melbourne and Fitzroy. But
Wonderful career.
He was a 200-plus game player, had some ripping games for South Australia. Stretchy, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. Yourself?
Mate, you look like you're in great shape. Look like you should still be playing.
Well, I'm not too bad. Endo makes me look good. You know, puts me through a few fitness regimes and keeps the body in good shape. So, yeah.
Hey, Phil, I reckon that I did see him, and I reckon a lot of South Australians did see him at his best, because I saw it the other night, the 1987 state game against Victoria, which you won by a few points. You had a cracker. Yeah, you're no question in the top 5 best players on the ground. I think you stood Gary Ablett Senior a bit, and I think he got dragged off you, and we had a great win. And they were good days.
They were great days, and I guess to this day that still remains as one of our greatest, or my greatest games and greatest memories. You know, playing in a few finals, but that particular state game in '87, fantastic. You know, 45,000 people at Footy Park, and a 3-point or 4-point win, I think, at the end of the day. But fantastic memories.
Mate, you kind of get tingly when you just start talking about it. I forgot to feel the tingles going. Anytime you mention Gary Ablett, you have to pursue some of that conversation. I mean, because he was just such an icon in the game. For you, physically, he looked like he'd be more imposing. You'd be quicker than him.
Yeah, probably got about 15 kilos on me, I think.
Yeah, did he give you any lip through the game?
A lot of lip, but I think I just had the uncanny knack of playing off of him and being able to read the play, and a little bit of pace, which actually helps. So I didn't get too close to him, but always played off him and just tried to read the play and put a fist in whenever I can. So, yeah, very, very difficult player to play against. And one of the greatest.
Some bloody handballs like you did that night as well. But you're right. It does. It's tingly talking about state footy, and I know that just recently we had the state of origin and the rugby league, and then quite often they'll put on another channel some of the old state games.
Yep.
They were fantastic days, and I know that today's footy is great, but it's such a pity that we still can't have our state of origin, South Australia versus Victoria, because as you said, that was some great highlights for yourself. Great highlights for me and
well, great years for South Australia. 87, 88, the Bicentennial Carnival, which we both played in. 89 was a bit of a disaster at the G, but those 3 or 4 years where we dominated and had all these fantastic young kids coming through, which eventually went to Melbourne and forged out their own careers. So we're very lucky.
Stretchy, who are some of the best players you played state footy with? Because you're playing in Melbourne and then you're with Fitzroy. So you don't get that like we see it now. You don't play with the Crows guys every week, so it's this now and then.
Well, apart from present company.
Oh, Endo, of course, excluded.
Because he made me look good a few times. But the likes of Craig Bradley and Johnny Platten, McGuinness.
Kernahan, of course.
Kernahan kicking all those goals. And then you got Matty Campbell down back. Mark Nayley kicked a lot of goals in state footy. He was fantastic. So, yeah, the list goes on. Rudy Mandamaker up forward.
Greg Phillips.
So terrific players. And, I think if you put all their accolades together and their best and fairest in state games and McGarry medals and Brownlow medals, it's a fantastic list.
Mate, we could talk for hours about your career and some of the players you've played with and against, but I want to touch on your son Billy now playing with Melbourne and the way the draft is set up. Because he gets drafted 2014,
that's
and
right.
most people see it. They see it on TV. They see the draft and they go, "Oh, gee, that's exciting." But it's not just that night. I'm wondering for the family and for you, father-son rule for him, of course, is you're living for months waiting to find out. What's that experience like?
Well, it's a difficult experience because it's not actually months. It's actually, for us, it was like 3 or 4 years. We first came into contact with a recruiting officers when he was 14 or 15.
Wow.
So we're going through the process of watching his development. For them coming and watching matches, having a lot of dialogue with them about what's perhaps could eventuate down the track. So it's not actually until you get to the under-18 National Carnival and to a lesser extent the under-16 Carnival where you actually sit down and start talking to some of these clubs. And that's quite involved, a setup where they come to your house, put a video camera up, talk to you, ask you questions, etc., etc. So,
because he had a great carnival, he got all Australian, which is fantastic, and then from the next step is he goes overseas and
with the AIS,
but it's just not the playing aspect as well, but it's also the actual person. And that's something that was probably never looked upon. Back in our day, we got 30 possessions week after week, and someone's looking at you. And but now it's just a bit more than that.
It is. It's not just ability. I mean, to get to that particular point, you have to have ability right from the word go. So what these recruiters are looking at is he of good character? Is he a good person, etc. So it comes down to the holistic family environment that he comes from as well. So all these players come from. So it's not just that. Sure, you've got to have speed and you've got to have endurance and be able to kick the footy, but you've also got to be coachable as well. So it's a big area that they look at these days. It's not just ability. It's more so the foundation and how you're brought up, how you treat people, etc.
Steve, having gone through it, if you were sitting in front of a group of 15-year-old footy players that were about to go through that phase where their next bit is they're getting scouted, what advice would you give them for the next 12 months of their life?
I'd say pursue your dream, which might be AFL, but also have a plan B. And your plan B would be have a good education, do your homework and do the right things at school, because it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
Also listen to your mentors and get advice from your coaches on the best things to do away from the club. Your rehab, your stretching, other things that can make you better outside of the club.
One thing we were talking about beforehand, and off air actually, we're just talking about your involvement with Richmond and the top 12 really get looked after.
Yep.
Now I suppose Billy goes to the club and he's not in the top 12 players at the Melbourne Footy Club, and it takes a while. Was that a hard period for him that all of a sudden Melbourne, we want you, Billy, we want you at the club, you're recruited and all that sort of stuff, and you sign the contract, then you go there, you're not one of the... How hard is that for a player?
Very, very difficult. I guess the thing with Billy, he's quite a mature kid and he's got a good head on his shoulders. So he actually went about 6 weeks before the national draft because the father-son was actually done prior to that.
Okay.
It's changed now.
Yep.
So he came straight out of his education at Emmanuel College. He was home for a week and then we had to drive him to Melbourne. And that was when he met all the coaches, all the players, etc. But he actually had to wait until after the draft before some of his own, when his own draftees came. So it was very difficult.
Well, we'll talk about hindsight. We're talking about your career or our careers, what would change if we knew what we knew now. Knowing what you know now, would have you picked somewhere else for Billy to go, or are you happy where he is, or are you just happy that he got the opportunity to pursue the dream?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I think in a perfect world, it'd be nice to be able to be selective and pick, the best environment for him. But
I was thinking more at home. He's home.
Oh,
and you
so
guys
from
are
like
here
the Crows or Port.
Yeah.
It would
Not
have
that
been,
might suit his footy, just a bit selfish. Mum and Dad want to hold on a bit longer.
But you were able to do that yesteryear in our year, because they had those Form 4s, so every side had one or two, and you say, what, I want to go to Melbourne, I want to go to Essendon, and they're happy for me to sign. Well, that's great. Well, you don't get that luxury anymore.
No, that's
so,
no.
It's a really good point, because being in a home environment, for someone that just lives down the road from from Footy Park, or some kid that just lives down the road from the Gabba, say for instance, you could be the other side of Australia.
He's grown up really quickly, and I think the move to Melbourne has been really good and really beneficial for him. He's more independent. He's reliant on his mentors and his coaches and his line coaches and around the club. So, whilst we would love him home, it's also very exciting going to see him.
Mate, you grew up in Melbourne. I know we've got to go quickly. It's a great city for sport, isn't it? I mean, and Ando played there. He just loved the whole sporting. It's grown from the '56 Olympics and just kept going. They're just engulfed in sport.
Yeah, and you would know too, Phil. You get enveloped when you go to Melbourne. Not just with football, but with cricket and basketball and tennis, and there's just everything you want to do there. It's a real attraction. I think a lot of people love living there, and we loved living there as well.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, we really appreciate your time, mate. Good that you give us some insight into what that's like going through the draft. As you said, it's years. It's not a couple of months. So big process.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming out. Stay with us. Still a bit more to come on the show.